But nonetheless, let's pick up on the expectations of what we think will come out of this meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky and President Donald Trump, especially as the president has said he believes things are in a good place. And Zelensky has said he thinks Trump can help.
Yeah, Yasmin, the president was coy about the specifics of this meeting he's having now with President Zelensky, saying they would talk about Tomahawk missiles and whether the U.S. could perhaps provide some of those longer-range weapons to Ukraine. They would talk about the potential purchase of Ukrainian drones, military technology that the Ukrainians have really perfected during the course of this war. And he spoke at great length about what he thinks will be necessary to bring it to a close. I noted one line from the president where he said the way this ends is with a president, and a president, meaning a sit-down meeting between he, Putin, and Zelensky, something that hasn't happened to date. Doesn't appear to be specifically on the calendar now. When he was asked about that possibility earlier in this meeting, he said what you may have is a double meeting, suggesting, and I think this is a point that will be reported out further today, that there would be this meeting in Budapest between he and Vladimir Putin, and then perhaps a separate additional meeting with Zelensky. That's wholly unclear. What we know now is that this peace process is moving towards that meeting, an eventual meeting in Budapest, perhaps in a week or two, and that the president is optimistic. He said that he thinks there's a deal to be made, although when pressed about the idea that this might be another delay tactic from President Putin, he said that he's been played before, and that that's entirely possible. And Yasmin, as this meeting was getting underway, I got some new reporting, confirming some reporting from earlier today in the Financial Times about that last meeting between President Trump and Vladimir Putin in Alaska. The new reporting from a source familiar is that that meeting, as long as it went, as much pomp and circumstance as there was before the two leaders sat down together, quickly turned south, with President Putin rejecting President Trump's offer for a ceasefire, engaging in a lengthy historical rant about Russian and Ukrainian history, so much so that President Trump raised his voice at him several times, even threatened to walk out of that meeting. That meeting, of course, begat this leaders summit back here in Washington, I guess a few days later, that really kind of marked a big turning point here of President Trump away from Russia towards Ukraine. His most recent comments after his most recent meeting with Zelensky at the UN were very positive, suggesting that Zelensky could win back the land lost to Russia in this war. So we've witnessed this long 9-month shift by the president across the length of his second administration now, all barreling towards this next meeting coming up some point in November.
That reporting obviously dropping in my inbox as well, Garrett, as you confirmed it. And I think it's interesting perspective to bring up, because you and I were speaking about the Alaska meeting at the time on the air and the lack of success really that came from it. In fact, Russian President Vladimir Putin that went on to meet Chinese President Xi, along with the Indian Prime Minister as well, all of them shaking hands, hugging, sort of an affront to the president, it seemed, and making no progress when it came to ending the war between both Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the public-facing elements of these diplomacy were similar, right? President Putin got the flyover, the walk down the red carpet with President Trump. They rode together in the Beast. The treatment was quite cordial, more like something you'd see with a very close ally than with a longtime adversary or potential adversary. I think back to an interview I conducted with a former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine who said the only person who can convince Donald Trump that Putin is, in this person's words, full of it, is Putin, and that he will eventually overplay his hand with Trump, who wants to get along with everybody, wants to have personal relationships with these leaders. It seems possible, if not likely, that that's what actually happened in the part of this Alaska meeting that we didn't see. That Vladimir Putin might have overplayed his hand, overstrained Donald Trump's patience. And now what we're seeing is the president swinging back the other way, trying to find ways to support Zelensky, perhaps by providing these weapons, by leaning on the nation of India to stop buying Russian oil, by taking steps that might, I emphasize might, lead to a conclusion of this war on more favorable terms for the Ukrainians than perhaps might have been seen if President Putin had accepted a ceasefire offer in Alaska over the summer.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.